Hello and welcome to episode number 238. This is the Project Management Podcast at pm-podcast.com, and I'm Cornelius Fichtner. Nice to have you with us. Go ahead, ask a few people whether they think that preparing for and passing the PMP exam will actually make someone a better project manager, and most of them will tell you that they think not. I've been a PMP trainer for the past 9 years, and in all my online classes I have always tried to instill a sense of betterment in my students, simply because I believe that if you take the approach that you are not just studying for the exam, but studying to improve your project management skills, well, then you will improve your skills. And guess what? I've interviewed Peter Dakessian, who recently passed his PMP exam, and his approach was exactly that. Surprise! So, if you are preparing for your PMP exam and you would like to follow my school of thought and use your exam prep to both pass the exam and improve your skills, well then, Peter is the man for you. And now, let's get 2 for 1.
The Project Management Podcasts feature interview.
Today with Peter Dakessian, IT Project Management Consultant.
Hello, Peter, and welcome to the program.
Hi, Cornelius. Thank you for having me.
Oh, you're more than welcome. And, of course, congratulations on getting your PMP.
Thank you. It was a tough climb, but well worth it.
When exactly did you pass?
I passed earlier this year, actually, in February. So
Okay.
Fairly recently.
All right. That means you passed the exam based on PMBOK 4. Is that right?
Yes, that is correct.
Okay, good. Now, before we go any further, let's throw a disclaimer in here. Since then, I contacted you, and you are currently on the team that's updating our PM Prepcast from version 4 to version 5 of the PMBOK guide. So, question for you. You've now seen PMBOK 5 already, PMBOK 5th edition. Is there anything that you would say, oh, because the PMBOK changes, you have to change your study approach?
I don't think I would really change anything. Even though there has been changes in the PMBOK between version 4 and version 5, the method is the same. You know, it's consistent study. It's not cramming, doing a little bit each day, but doing it every day. Learning, studying as much as possible. So I wouldn't really say my method would change, just I have different things to study.
Okay. If you had to do this again, is there anything you would do differently? Just because, now that you've gone through it, you learned something and you say, hey, I need to change this approach and I would do this differently.
I would have studied the formulas a little bit earlier. I waited to study the formulas until a few months right before I took my exam, and come to find out that was a major area of my exam. I was focusing more on the processes, process groups, thinking, oh, well, it's going to be more of a rote repetition. But the more I learned about the exam, the more I thought, no, this is more of a application test, and I need to learn how to apply these formulas. So I started studying it for that. So if I do it differently, I would study the formulas a lot sooner.
And why did you choose to become a PMP? What was the driving force behind it?
I've been interested in project management for a while, ever since it was thrust on me back in my military days.
Wait, pressed on you?
Yes.
So you're like me, an accidental project manager?
Yes, I think there's a lot more of us out there than we know.
Okay, sorry, I interrupted you. So project management was pressed on you.
Yes, you know how it is. You're working somewhere, you're maybe in a management position, maybe otherwise, and all of a sudden somebody leaves or you get a new responsibility. They say, here's this project, I want you to get it done. And that was what happened with me. Just completely thrown to the wolves. I had to learn as I go. And I thought, there's got to be a better way to do this. Started studying, and then through the years, I've been studying various types of project management. Then after I finished my master's, I thought, you know what? It's time to get my PMP. So that was the main driving force.
Why not a master's in project management?
I wanted to go for master's in business in general. I was really interested in the entire field. I come from a IT background, and I really wanted to get the business side as well because a lot of times business and IT don't really mesh as well. It's really hard for a lot of business people to understand IT and really hard for a lot of IT people to understand business. So I wanted to be that bridge. So I thought, once I get that done, I can get my PMP and I'll have the best of both worlds.
Okay. And how long had you worked as a project manager before you decided, okay, I'm going to get my PMP?
About 7 or 8 years.
Okay. So you had no problems whatsoever understanding the eligibility criteria and meeting them as well, right?
Oh, no, there wasn't really a problem at all.
And were you designated on your project as project manager, or did you have any other designation on the projects?
I had a lot of different management titles. I didn't really have a project manager title on my business card, but with the management titles that I had, they said, you are the project manager for this project. You are the project manager for this project. So even though your business card doesn't say it, if you're designated the project manager and you're running the project, you're it. So that was my
Right.
experience.
Okay. And there was no issue with explaining that on your PMP application either?
Oh, no. I just went through my experience and I said, I managed this project. I managed that project. This was what I was given. These are the results. This is the process I went through. And it was pretty simple.
Did you get audited?
No, I didn't get audited. I didn't really expect to be, considering how much experience I put on the application. But I would imagine if you were very vague or you didn't fill out the application in full, you would get audited. The process is very, very big. The application is long, and a lot of people, I think, get frustrated. And so they decide to leave like one sentence answers or something like that. But it's important to be thorough. So, no, I wasn't audited, probably because of the amount of detail that I put in the application.
Okay, let me just jump in here and give a small correction. If you are vague and only give little information on the application will be rejected by PMI during the completeness control. So PMI, there is actually somebody there who reads the application first and verifies that what you have on the application is sufficient. Then they tell you, yeah, it's complete, you can apply. And from that moment on, the audit process is 100% random chance. You have a 50% chance of being audited or not being audited. It does not matter at all what your roles were, where you worked, how much or how little you worked. The audit is purely by chance. But they will get back to you saying, this is not sufficient. We need more on your application. All right.
It's good to know. Good to know.
Yeah. Moving on. How did you prepare for the exam?
Well, I first started off reading a little bit about which certifications were available. I looked a little bit at the Scrum Master certification. I looked a little bit at the ITIL. But I really, really loved what PMI had with PMP. First of all, it's the most recognizable project management certification out there. And so that got me really interested. Second of all, I knew that it was a very intense exam, so I wanted the challenge of that as well. So I went through that. Once I selected that I wanted to study for the PMP, I started reading articles on it. I got a couple books, read forums. I mean, I really took in as much information as I could. I also, as you know, Cornelius, I studied with the PM Prepcast that you come out with, and that was a big help for me as well. I would listen to that every morning, and I would listen to it every evening in between, reading my books and articles. So I took in a lot.
So how much time in total did it take you from start to finish?
I would say about 7 or 8 months.
7 or 8 months. And you were on sabbatical during all of that time, or did you also work on the side? Because it sounds like if you 7 to 8 months and you study every day, that's an enormous amount of study time.
Yes, it was an enormous amount of study time. Luckily, I knew in advance that I wanted to study for this certification, so I took a sabbatical along with doing a little bit of traveling on the side. I really dedicated myself to studying. I did not want to go into this exam saying, oh, I crammed for this and I'm hoping I get it. I really wanted to know the material and not feel like once I blare it out onto the paper or blare it out onto my exam that I would forget it. I really wanted to get a good handle on the material. So I took a sabbatical and I studied intensely.
So you didn't just study the material for the exam, if I understand you right. You studied the material to become a better project manager.
Exactly. I didn't look at this as I just want some letters after my name. I did this as in, okay, I've managed projects, I've done this, I've had experience. I want to learn what PMI says, and I want to be able to apply this for the future of my career. It wasn't just I want the certification; it's I want to get better.
How many times did you read the PMBOK guide?
Multiple, multiple times. Highlighting. I think I went through a couple different highlighters. It's multiple times.
You went through a couple of, well, yeah, over 7-8 months. All right. And what other books did you choose to read? You mentioned you read several other books as well.
Yes, I had a book by Andy Crow.
Mm-hmm.
The PMP exam how to pass on your first try. That was very helpful. And I also had a couple different articles that I would read online, but that was the main book that I went through.
Did you take any classes? I mean, going to a classroom?
No, I did not. I had a couple that were offered to me, but because of the free time that I had on the sabbatical, I decided, I would be better off, spreading it out as opposed to going through a 8 or 10 hour a day cram course.
How many hours do you say you studied it? Did you keep track of anything?
I would usually study about 4 or 5 hours a day, a little bit in the morning, and then I would go out, do some exercise, or get my mind off things. Come back, study for a couple hours, and then right before I went to bed, I would make sure to study as well. So I spread it out, morning, afternoon, and then evening, but I always had that consistent time.
In regards to sample questions for the exam, what was your approach there?
I went online and I found a couple different exam simulators. I looked at your product. I looked at a couple other ones, and I just did as much as I could. The exams that I took were only about a month before I took the exam. I didn't want to worry too much about, oh, well, I'm not passing this, because I don't know the material. I wanted to know all the material and then take the prep exams, and I think that really helped.
You said you went online to find exam sample questions. Did you by any chance also use online exam forums? Exchange yourself with others, ask questions, answer questions that they had?
Yes. I would read many different forums. I would go through, you're not allowed to discuss what are exact questions on the exam. You can't do that. But people would say, you need to know your formulas for this type of problem. You need to know this process group and something like that. So I would do that, and that was very helpful as well.
What was your favorite online group, if you had any?
I would actually read yours, the OSP
really?
International. Yes.
Wow. Okay. And
I don't want to sound like I'm
disclaimer. This was not prepared.
Yes,
this question came out of the blue.
I don't want to sound like I'm
okay. What was your second favorite?
To be honest, I can't really remember the name. I have it bookmarked on my laptop instead of my desktop, and I don't have a list in front of me. But I went through, and I would have a couple that I would read every day.
You mentioned early on that you said, you thought this was going to be rote memorization, and then you learned, oh no, this is more applying what you have in terms of experience. However, was there anything that you specifically memorized?
The formulas. I specifically memorized the formulas.
Okay. Where did you take your PMP exam?
I took it through the Prometric testing site, which is a couple miles away from me. So it was pretty convenient. Nice building, nice neighborhood. So I went through very relaxed, as you can be right before you take a major exam. They had a nice little park right in front of the testing center. So I sat down, I read through my notes one last time, and then walked through the doors.
When you said you read through your notes one last time, what notes were they?
Well, when I went through any PMP books that I had, or when I was listening to the Prepcast, I would keep a notebook with what I would consider to be the key ideas of each lesson, or each knowledge area, or each process even, along with the formulas. And so if I didn't have time to go through the entire book again, or to listen to the entire Prepcast again, I would go through my note pages, and I would say, oh, yes, I remember this topic. I remember this. This is a good tip. So I would just go through it that way. It was very helpful.
Okay, so you're sitting out there, you're relaxing sort of in the park in front of the testing center. Did you know where the testing center was before the day of your exam, or did you just drive there on the day that the exam happened?
I drove there a week before just to make sure that I knew the route, to make sure I wouldn't get lost and become late to my test, along with getting a printout of directions. So I wanted to make sure there was no hiccups on the day of the exam.
What type of identification did you have with you when you went there?
I had my driver's license. I had my passport. A couple people I heard bring their credit cards, but I didn't want to risk that.
Was there anything in the exam center that you were surprised about?
I was surprised at the lockers. I was wondering what they were for, and then turns out you can't have anything in your pockets, not even a stick of gum. So you get your everything. You empty out your pockets. You empty out everything. They make sure you don't have anything in your shirt pocket. So that was the biggest surprise.
Okay. What about videotaping in the exam center?
No cameras, no videotaping, nothing.
No. I mean, the other way around. Were you being videotaped?
Oh, yes. They had cameras everywhere just to ensure that the testing area was sterile, which I think is good because that helps keep up the standards.
Okay. Did you use up all the 4 hours that it takes for the exam?
Thankfully, I did not. It took me about three hours. But again, I studied a significant amount of time, so I was hoping that I wouldn't be, pushing the envelope in terms of 1 minute left. I better answer these last questions.
Yeah, for me it was 3 minutes, 3 hours and 58 minutes. Yeah, that was pushing it a bit there. When you said it took you 3 hours, was that 3 hours to go through it all and then submit, or was that 3 hours and then do a review and just take your time at the end and make sure everything looks right to you?
3 hours to finish the exam, and then I went through and I did a review. Once I saw how much time I had left, I went through and I double checked all the marked questions that I had, made sure I wasn't, or make sure I was sure about the answer I wanted to pick, make sure I didn't make any mistakes.
How many questions do you think you marked for review?
Maybe 15 or 20. It wasn't too many.
Okay. And you went with the idea, I only mark it if I have a serious concern.
I would mark the questions if I had a serious concern, but also if it was taking me a little too much time. Like maybe it was a long story question or something like that, and I just too much to read after doing too many calculations. So I would mark it and I would come back, stand up and stretch or something like that, and then go back and do the review. And I think that helped a lot.
Okay. Now, there's one thing that seems to be changing about every 6 months, and that is once you're done with the exam and you click the end exam button, a scary thing to do, I know, but is the survey after the exam mandatory? Or rather, was it mandatory for you or was it optional for you?
The survey was optional.
Okay.
But certainly you push, great exam, and then the survey comes up all of a sudden and you're wondering, what's my score? But I went ahead and I filled it out. I used that as an opportunity to decompress and breathe. And then I hit great exam after that, or get results, I should say.
Okay. Now, you've studied for 7 to 8 months straight through. What were your proficiency levels? Were they through the roof?
I had proficient on initiating, and I was moderately proficient on the other ones. I think it was because I waited to do the formulas until the last second that I didn't have the command over them that I desired.
All right. So you're sitting there, you're seeing your score, you're getting up, you're going out. What happens during checkout?
Besides taking a deep breath, I got congratulated by the gentleman who was running the testing center. He gave me the printout from PMI that said, hey, this candidate has passed. Here are your results. Congratulations. And then they sign and date that. And then you're on your way home to a well-earned dinner.
What was the first thing you did after you stepped outside? Who did you call?
I called my mother. She's been very supportive of me throughout this entire process. And I also called a couple different family members, my brother as well. They were all really rooting for me to pass. They knew how much of a achievement it is. And so I was really excited to share the news with them.
All right. So now that you've just confessed to me that you're a bit, weak when it comes to the formulas. Should I make sure that when it comes to reviewing and updating the old prepcast to the new prepcast, that we don't give anything to you that doesn't have formulas in it?
I would say a focus on the formulas would be good. I didn't think that it would be that great a part of the exam. I thought it would be, just a couple questions here and there.
Okay.
But PMI has a very, very interesting way of tying in the formulas, even for story questions. They'll throw you a couple numbers and they'll say, this is what's going on. What do you do? So I really wish that I studied my formulas a lot more. So that would be great.
Okay. So what's next in your career? Currently, you're helping us out with the upgrade. What comes afterwards?
After that, I'm looking at a couple Scrum certifications, and I'm also interested in PMI's ACP certification as well.
Excellent. You can have free access to our Agile Prepcast as part of our team, obviously. Yes.
I'm looking forward to that. Yes.
We'll set that up once the interview is done. Okay. What about PMI dinner meetings? Are you networking with your colleagues?
I've done a little bit of networking online, and I have just recently got an invitation to the PMI dinner meetings because I made sure to join the chapter near me, and I'm starting to get the dinner invitation. So I'm looking forward to go to my first one soon. So I'm really excited about that, actually.
Okay. It's been a few months since you've passed the exam. Have you already earned your first PDUs?
Yes, I have.
How did you earn them?
I went to a Scrum certification course.
Okay, that gives you about 16 or so, huh?
Yes. And I also did one of the webinars on PMI's website. They have a couple different webinars available.
Okay. And what is the next thing you're going to do in order to earn your next PDUs?
I'm looking to get another Agile certification, actually. So I'll take another class on that after I study a little bit more at home, and then I'll look for a couple different webinars as well.
Excellent. It seems to me that you're going to be running out of letters soon behind your name.
That's the goal. But I've always believed that, the more knowledge you can attain and the harder you can work, the better your results will be in your career. You're not going to be handed anything in this economy. So I firmly believe that hard work gets rewarded. So that's been my goal.
All right. So we've already learned from you. Make sure that you include your formulas as you study. Don't push them to the end. Just, study them along with everything else and make them part of your studies. Do you have any other final tips about the exam for our listeners?
Yes. Consistency in studying would be the number one tip I could give. It was very, very beneficial to me to have a consistent, steady stream of studying versus just cramming it at the end. Because I would go through the exam and I would get a question that I didn't know offhand, and then I would remember what I had studied a couple months back, and it would just come back to me. So if I had crammed, there would have been a very, very high chance that I would have forgotten the nuances and the specifics of certain processes and knowledge groups, and I would not have got that answer right. So I think consistency, even just, an hour in the morning, an hour in the evening, as long as you're consistent, I think that is the best advice I can give anybody looking to pass their PMP exam.
All right, Peter, thank you very much for having been on the program. And please do come back when you pass your PMI ACP.
Thank you, Cornelius. I look forward to that as well.
And that was our interview with Peter Dakessian and his path to the PMP exam. If you yourself are preparing for your PMP exam, then the best way to calm the butterflies in your stomach is to take a practice exam. Our PMP exam simulator offers you 9 such practice exams. To see how it works and take a free test drive, please go to freeexamsimulator.com. That's it for today. Thank you very much for listening. As always, you can find us on the web at pm-podcast.com. Please send your emails to info@pm-podcast.com, and when you write, please do tell me where in the world you are writing from. And finally, we have this. If you don't know where you're going with your project, just talk about scope creep. Until next time.